Across from me is Sebastian Rödl, a professor from Leipzig, author of Self-Consciousness, Categories of the Temporal, and Self-Consciousness and Objectivity, his central topic being self-consciousness. His book is also translated in Slovenian, published as Samozavedanje with Kartina. Sebastian, you are the thinker of pure thought. How can pure thought help us now?
Yeah, it can't. Is this on? No, it can't. I don't know who said it, but it's the truth, so I can just say it, that the intellectual, spiritual dignity of atheism at each time is determined by the intellectual dignity, spiritual dignity of the church of that time. So by that measure, we see the church today is in very, very horrible shape. There's something similar. So Hegel is the philosopher of the spirit. That's a central term for his, by which he self-describes. Spirit in this context is, I think, properly contrasted with matter. So we would have materialism as something to set in opposition to Hegel. So how good is the materialism of our time? That will be the measure of how good of Hegelians we are today. But I want to make an observation about philosophy and then see it mirrored in the extra-philosophical world, which I don't know very well, but see it from afar. So in philosophy, we have a sort of loss of there's a, let's just call that a scientistic movement. There's the idea that the questions with which philosophy concerns itself can be better answered when they are approached scientifically. And so we have now societies for the scientific study of consciousness. Now, the people who are engaged in these, it takes like a few years, and then they get very sort of, they get a sense of profound dissatisfaction, and because they feel something is missing. I suppose spirit is missing, they don't know how to call it, but there's something's missing, and there's something they want to somehow, well, not only study thought scientifically, but somehow feel it too, like from the inside. They want to be somehow, inside thought somehow. And so they begin to engage in meditation, and there are programs for that. Like first you study the brain, and then you go to meditate. I just want to say this is the most primitive, vulgar, really just stupid form of spirituality, which is the mirror image of the form of understanding that sort as well of ourselves in this scientistic fashion. But what happens is that as well, the idea of thought and understanding is restricted to a certain manner of understanding, and then what doesn't fit becomes really stupid. It's then the area of primitive, vulgar, barbaric forms of self-occupation. And there is this is, I don't know, where can Hegel help us? I don't know, well, probably not. So now here comes the extra-philosophical world, now I'm going to talk, you probably had this question for someone else, but I'm going to talk about climate change. Climate change is great in this way. It's really primordial. I mean, it relates to men's relation, human beings' relation to the heavens. What's the weather going to be like? That's really profound. I mean, it's like pervasive in our being, and so it's also uncontrollable, like the weather, the rain, and so on. And so it comes climate change. And now, what are we going to do about this? You know, we're somehow really unsettled and afraid, and we just know it's going to be bad, and it's not clear how bad, but it's going to be bad. So what do we do? And like the first thing we do is we called us the scientists. Yeah, the scientists are now scientists for future. They're for the future. The scientists are for the future. That's great. I'm gonna found the philosophers for the future. But no, they're scientists for the. They're not yet. They're scientists for the future. And then it seems that the problem is that if only the politicians would listen to the scientists, that's a problem. It's actually so. There's the idea that there's actually knowledge that will save us, and this knowledge is not brought to bear as well on politics. Because the politicians are too stubborn or somehow too self-concerned. They don't open themselves up to the truth of science, and this is why we will mess up. Yeah, so that's the problem, perhaps. So, but then there's another take on the problem, and now is an occasion for a philosopher to get really huge funds. Huge amounts of money if you get the right kind of grant. That is, if you now realize, the problem is actually deeper than this. It's not just a scientific problem. You know, it has to do with really the ways we think. You know, fundamentally, you know, how we think about nature. Yeah, we somehow think in the wrong way about nature. That's our problem. We need to find new ways of thinking. We need to think differently. And so, for example, we need to recognize nature as one that has a claim on us, and we need to put nature in the position of a subject of right. You know, now we got a reform of legal theory where both animals, plants, and mountains are going to figure now as subjects of rights. Now, this is one of the things on which Hegel rightly pours scorn. That is, he pours scorn on people who propound grand ideas of how things should be in contrast to how they are, and he says this is put thoughts in a soft medium. It says in weiches element. These ideas, I mean, there's just the difficulty with them is that they're just nonsense. They just make simply no sense, and they will never be introduced into the hard medium of law, because they will just destroy it from within. And everybody so it will never happen. It's completely pointless. But so this is the one thing. But then we can also be even more revolutionary in our ways of thinking. We had some examples from Professor Letterati, some quotes of people who really want these new ways of thinking. And now, when you look at them, they are not scientistic anymore. They're often against this objectifying, mechanicizing, scientific approach to nature. Yeah, we need this is bad. We need to reintroduce life subjectivity and being in rapport with nature, and so now here's spirituality again. You know, we want to get rid of this scientistic narrowing. Now we get it really spiritual, and it's really extremely primitive. I mean, it's really very, very stupid. This form of renewed spirituality in our relationship to nature, so this is one thing that Hegel can exemplify, namely undertake to include that what I call just vaguely, spiritual being of ourselves, within understanding and thought, and not have that be as well chopped off soft element.
Right, thank you very much.